Hey everyone, it's Baileywiki, and we made it. March 2025, and it's release day. Leading the headlines is a new category browser for Mass Edit. We took a little inspiration from Dungeon Alchemist, which has a great asset browser function. So now you have tens of thousands of Baileywiki prefabs and assets at your fingertips in a nice browsable experience, but with extra bells and whistles that you know from Mass Edit. And this is just in time to use all the new stuff that came out this month. Foundry basic tiers get new diorama tiles, but this time with ancient crumbling ruins. These things are magical when used for making maps using my library. But you also get the Woodworker release. So building off of the industries we've been deploying with tons of tools, sawhorses, lumber operations, even toys, including some full buildings. Foundry Advanced tiers actually get two big treats this month, starting with some pretty epic new 3D scenes from the design team. Your players will absolutely love playing these scenes. They are not only visual art, but super like tactical scene design and some really great themes. And the new assets that come out will help make building your own dungeons really, really easy. But you also get new Scenescape scenes for advanced tiers for the woodworker and for the blacksmith. So using Scenescapes to show merchants. We've got a new blacksmith character or characters that you can drop into your scenes as well. And of course, Dungeondraft tiers get nearly 700 tiles, I think, that went into this release. So all of the stuff. So with that, let's jump into the walkthrough.
Okay, so where you want to find all the new assets, update all of your Baileywiki modules, especially towns in District 01. You also want to update landing pages. If you're an advanced member, you can get some of the new Scenescapes. And you want to update 3D. There's new 3D assets. And make sure you get nuts and bolts and mass edit as well. Once you do those, you will find all of the scenes in the 2D scenes, and then you'll find all the 3D scenes in the 3D scenes. And all of the new assets, of course, are going to be in the Mass Edit browser. So when you open that up, you can just type in new, pound new, that forces the new tag, and you'll see all the new stuff. Everything up here are prefabs and special tiles and all that good stuff, including a whole bunch of new fireplaces. And if you click this button, you'll open up the virtual directory and you can see all of the tiles that went into this release. So a lot of these are put into brushes up above. You can find everything here as well. Now, the big news is you've got this new macro, the BW Asset Category Browser. And when you open it, you get this new window. You've got a couple of things on top here, but you can see as you click through it, if we click into 2025, we go to March, we can see all the things in this release that came out. And when you shrink it down, you can get that familiar sort of text view of everything. And it's great. So instead of having to like figure out what's in the library, you can just click on decoration, go to furniture, start seeing all of the furniture that's available. Again, limiting it to prefabs and presets or what's also in the virtual directory. This only works with Baileywiki assets right now. There may be other creators that want to use this for their stuff in the future. They can reach out to us. But yeah, you can just click on seating and see all the seating options. Of course, all these brushes create multiple seating options. You've got beds, bathroom stuff, different ladders, ruined furniture. You can get into storage, all different kinds of barrels, chests, crates. Just makes it really easy to find everything. And just when you think like, okay, where did Bailey put like, statues? If you just come up here to this global search and you search for statue, it'll immediately filter everything down to that search. And it works like searches anywhere else. So you could say like, look, I want things that are only tagged as statues, right? Or I want things that are tagged as, I don't know, roofs. And it will automatically pull that up no matter where you are in the list. Now, if you toggle this global search off, it will just look within the category that you're in for whatever you're looking for. So, if you come down to, for example, equipment, you go into weapons, this is a huge category, right? So you might want to just search for sword and immediately see all the swords that are available to you in this collection. So there's a lot in here. There's all the decor items, statues and rugs, things that you would need to make a map. There's animated stuff. Let's get rid of this. You can see animated assets, and these can be really fun. You've got all the new like animated banners and things that you'll see here in this release. You've got plot hooks of different kinds. These are things you can just drop into a scene to immediately make something interesting. You've got tons of lights, lots of working prefabs, lights, fireplaces, torches, campfires, signal fires. You've got all sorts of nature stuff. So we're looking at all the diorama tiles with a bunch of subcategories, like all the clearings, including ambient sounds for those. And these thumbnails will get fixed in the next one by the time you get it. Um, I had to create smaller versions of all these thumbnails so that they loaded faster. You've got all your forest, paths, canyons, all that good stuff. You also have all your unlimited terrain spawners. So these you can drag right onto a scene and it will automatically spawn all that terrain. And then you can get into all sorts of other things that might be helpful. Different winter decor items, rocks, uh, you know, bushes, all that stuff. And these, again, at the top are all prefabs, right? So this is a bad scene to do it because this is a Scenescape scene, but that's how those work. So this gives you the ability to really learn what's in the library a lot easier than just kind of like sifting through it, looking through folders and things like that. So I encourage you guys to check this out. All the crafting stuff, alchemists and libraries and carpenters and blacksmiths, all the carpenter stuff, the woodworker came out this month here. You've got all the settlements, so different marketplace options, all the things you'd use structurally to build things. So these are going to be like staircases and pillars and that kind of thing. All of the buildings, so there's hundreds of buildings, including, some subcategories for like taverns and facades. Facades are fake buildings that you can use to populate towns really quickly, but you can't enter them. Gardens, homes, castles. You've got all the rooms. So these rooms are modular rooms that you can bolt together. And of different varieties, right? So laboratory and hallways and all sorts of stuff that you can combine together to make cool things. Docks and shipwrecks, all the carnival and fair stuff, all camping things, just things that you throw into a camp, including the full camps themselves. Then you get into dungeons. You've got castles, crypts, stone dungeons, metal dungeons, dungeon pieces. You've got the bioship pieces. These have a bioship overlay when you drop them in. You've got various types of rubble, dungeon decor of different types, skeletons, all that good stuff. All your traps and levers. Most of this like works with active tiles. The active tiles themselves you can drop into scenes and make smart. And then you've got all your vehicles, right? So your land, sea, and air vehicles to be able to drop into scenes. So I love it. We've been spending a lot of time creating these categories and doing the tags so that this works properly. Please communicate back to me if there are tags that you think we should create. I didn't want to do too much or have any of these be too long, so they kind of fit nicely into the browser. But otherwise, this works the same way that you're used to. Just grab as many things as you want, add them to a brush, or just like you're used to using with brushes, or you can edit from here. It's just an alternative interface to the asset browser that you're used to using. So you can use both. And there's advantages and disadvantages to both of them, but let me know how you get along in the comments. So with that, let's jump into our inventory scene. So first of all, we have animated banners. We have stills, including colorable ones, but then you see the animated ones next to those stills, just so you can see kind of how they work. I did a tutorial on how to create these things yourself, but these are awesome, right? And they've got this token magic effects drop shadow added to them, and these are just great. You'll see them in use a lot in the scenes we're about to look at today. And you can just find them by opening up your mass edit browser and just look for like animated banner, and you can find brushes for both animated and there's unanimated, things like that. Next up, we have a bunch of new terrain patches. These are diorama patches involving ruins. So I really wanted to create some maps that you could just drop in, and they've already got a suggestion of being a ruin, right? So this like shadowy staircase leading up, and they're all feathered so that they can fit together and augment each other and go with all of the other diorama tiles. And you'll see here in a second how they work, but I love it. I love just having these hints of walls and broken towers, and they're just all just subtly unique, and they can go together in really cool ways. You get some towers on some of these, and so I think you're really going to enjoy building with these. Any one of these can be a map in and of itself, right? You just drop it in and you've got instantly interesting terrain, but you can put two of them together and you've got now even more interesting terrain. So you can just keep doing that until you create a map that you like. And of course, they are available as prefabs, so you can drop in the prefab. So if we looked for, um, let's do the diorama tag and look for ruins, you can drop this in and it will uh, be smart. So you can double click it and it'll randomize it. You can make them bigger or smaller, and it works really well. I also have a tutorial that's going to coming out. It's a design with me tutorial where you can see me design most of the scenes that I made for this release. I'm going to time lapse them first, and then I'll break them out for Patreons and for people who support the channel first, and then I'll release them so you guys can see yourselves how to sort of design with all this stuff. Of course, we've got more diorama tiles involving ruins. Lots of different varieties, so you can put them together, and then a lot that have more of a grassy variety. So these go well with other grassy terrain tiles in case you want a ruin that's in the middle of maybe a larger grassy area. And then we got kind of two, three more-ish diorama tiles. We have swamp tiles, and these are just to really kind of show swamp scenes. I think there's a lot of opportunity to do things in swamps. You can put like platforms going out over these, and you can drop in huts and things that go really well in a swampy kind of environment. And then we've also got mountains, and these mountains are really meant to just bulk up your terrain, put these around other things, or just have a battle on top of a mountain here. So there are different varieties. Again, the prefabs for these all come with the adjust filter, right? So you can open up the Baileywiki effects, and this adjust filter is pre-applied to all of them, and that means you can change their coloring. You can make them different hues. You can desaturate them. So you can really make them match a lot of things, including snowy environments. So if you add the adjustment filter, let's take out the saturation, you can see it's already getting lighter. If we edit that just a little bit more, maybe we drop the saturation down to 2, you're starting to get something that that can also be a really, really good and convincing snowy environment, right? And you up the gamma, and now we're pretty much there. So that's how you use these in other combinations that the original artwork isn't necessarily meant to do. We also have some just some dead grass. Just wanted some of this stuff. I think it looks really good. It looks good combined with other things, and a couple other things like just some more canyon stuff that I think the library really needed to pull some more things together. And last but not least, for the new assets, we have the Woodworker Assets. So we have tons of new tools, interesting tools, lots of stuff where you can come in here and click on these and see what they're called. This is your gimlets, and these are all available in brushes, right? So if we look up just brush woodworker, we'll see all kinds of brushes for tools and other things here. You just right click it, add it to a brush, and you can start adding it to your scene, or just drag it straight from that window to your scene. But we've got not just like saws and tools, but we also have tool boxes. These are really effective if you want to really quickly make a scene, or you want to have a toolbox that's interactive, give to your players. All of these toys, these are super fun. And of course, they come in toy boxes and displays too. So you can quickly dress up a scene. Maybe it's a kid's bedroom. Maybe it's something else. Woodworker furniture sawhorses. So these sawhorses are super flexible. They can be benches. They can be tables. They can be, of course, sawhorses. So there's a lot of different kinds. So you just have a lot to pick from. And then you see the sawhorses and workbenches that are actually prefabbed out. So these have, they're come automatically decorated. These are super effective and easy for just throwing into a scene and making it quickly look like there's some kind of woodworking or some kind of industrial or crafting operation going on. Of course, we need also lumber because we have some lumber-related woodworkers, and that's where you find these types of things here. You've got a saw and sawdust underneath this like lumber pile. Same thing here, just a single log over a couple of sawhorses being sawed off. You can also drop in some of the sawdust. You can make that. This works great as a brush and brushing it into a scene where you can fill the floor with sawdust. Don't overdo it though. This is Foundry after all. Wood piles of different varieties that you'll need. All the unfinished furniture. We also have some audio loops. We've got hammer on wood, and then we've got a saw loop. And we just have those so that you'll see in a second, I use those to create little ambient areas of maps. And then we've got all of these prefabs for a woodworker's display or shop, right? So you would just throw these into a map, give yourself immediate, kind of mercantile type of operations. They dress up maps really, really super fast, and they work really well to give it instant detail. And then all of those, or most of those at least, canopies you see also pulled out as their own canopies. We just have a lot of canopies. You just can't have too many, I feel, when you're designing. And then we also have, last for the woodworker, is these actual prefab shops. These also do come as facades, but here's what the shop looks like. So your players can come in here. You've got different activities going on from a woodworking perspective. You've got all of your inventory, and then you've got some livable areas and some workshops. And then this one is actually a 2-story toy store. So it's got a little kind of toy displayed out front. Your players can walk in, explore all the different toys. Maybe you have something fun for them to discover. A little workshop area. They can leave the back door and go up the stairs, and they come into this bedroom over the toy shop and a little closet there as well. So plenty of stuff for them to explore. You can get rid of these animated tiles if they're having, if you want to cut down on performance requirements. You just click the tile and you hit Shift D, and that will delete just the tile from the prefab, and do the same thing over here. Note that anything with red colors is colorable. So we can, colorize this roof. Maybe the toy store is bright green. Maybe the banners themselves are green. Okay, now where you're going to spend a lot of your time if you like to make maps is in the template scenes. So this is a simple single diorama template. You can double click this dice and it will randomize it. You can also just double click this. You can double right click it and give you some more options for changing things around. It does come built with some day and night ambient audio already, but this is a good starter to kind of get you going anywhere else. Like any other diorama template, you can just copy it, paste it, and you can start just randomizing this and making cool maps out of everything. Here's the 5-scene diorama template. Same thing, you can roll the dice. It'll roll all of these 5 different scenes here, right? So this one's in the middle. You can move these up and down on top of each other, below each other, and you just keep randomizing it until you get something that you love. As always, you just, all to use these, just duplicate the scene or just drag it out of Compendium, and you can make a fresh new one to work with. Now, this is an unlimited terrain scene. So this is the dirt-based ruins. So this is going to have ruins that, have this kind of dirt and dirty sort of outline to them. But this is, infinitely changeable. So if you just double click it and say adjust position, and you start rolling, you can just change it around, find a spot that you like, zoom in on it, adjust where you are in the map. Maybe you want more of this forest look. Maybe you want this kind of piece of wall over on the side. That's how you just start. And of course, you can put doors in these walls, and you can drop in buildings and everything else. There's also an unlimited ruins forest map. So this one has a lot of forest around it. If we adjusted its position, we'd see a lot of kind of forest options and be able to move that around. And then we have the grass map as well. This one, again, just you find a spot that you really love and you start building with that. So 3 different kinds of ruins. Walking through our scenes, we have the archaeological dig site. This is a scene that you'll see me do and build if you're curious. There's this archaeological dig site sort of headquarters, and it's got the little slightly animated canopy over it, which looks fun. And you just have a lot of movement between the crows and stuff on the scene. I just really like how it works together. You've got caves that you can go inside of. You've got these little caves where you can, hide enemies. You've got, overhead tiles where you can hide NPCs. Maybe there's NPCs to discover and talk to. So really big map that your players can search through and explore, and you can drop lots of interesting things in here. These are just tiles, right? That's just a tile. And you can change this around, but more caves that they can go inside of. Super fun. The buried bioship looks like, just this kind of old entrance to this ruin. You've got some of these animated flags, but if we turn on levels, we'll see there's actually a bioship underneath the ruin, and your players can make it back here, interact with the brine pool interact with the biopods. These can open, they can reveal your players or enemies. They make fun noises. It's too much fun. The large ruin, really simple map, just big and capable to just handle a lot of different kinds of stories and big battles, right? So your archers will be able to really use their distance in a map like this. The lumber operations features the lumber shop that you saw earlier, but also the kind of lumber pieces, kind of around the place. Everything, by the way, has a day and night ambiance to it. So if we turn this to night, and you notice there's these lines that point out here. You can delete those later by clicking the delete map notes. I'll just show you what's involved here. So randomly, it plays bats flying, and your players can't see this. This is all invisible to them. And there's another one over here that will give different sound effects, including some innocuous ones like there's some crows. And it's meant to just make it so that your players don't really know what's triggering it, but they just hear some noises. And you can always just turn. That's actually a tile. It's very faint and hard to see because it's mostly transparent. But you can just turn it off here if you want to turn these off for a particular scene. But your players can make it into the woodworking shop and explore and talk to NPCs here. Next up, we have the old church in the mountains. And you've got the church, which you guys may have seen from my library already. Just dropped in with the top painted black. Church has a little hidden ladder in the northeast. Comes with the church. You can change that into other things. And then it's just got a really nice area outside. The statue that's dropped in here, and when the lights are down, makes a really good ambiance. Kind of creepy and kind of awesome. Here's the orc camp with an arena. So your players, if they get here, they see all the blood splattered in the arena. They can go like underneath these pillars. I think it's like a nice effect. Really feels like they're tucked into this arena. You've got these great animated assets just to really kind of bring some life to it. Kind of goes with the ambient audio around it. But yeah, this looks good at night also. So we can drop the lights and we have a fully explorable orc camp, and everything in here is interactive. I can right click this, change the fire. I can turn these off. So lots of interactive pieces, lots of things for your players to play around with, but really the showcase is right here in the middle. Outpost in the swamps, just another one that looks great in day and night. You have sort of your entrance here, which you can add, more diorama tiles to if you'd like, but you've got some barricades and a defensible position here. Your players can make their way to this entrance, and it will pop them up to the top of this tower where they can shoot down with those ballista. And that just works that way. So there's some cover if they're up above using some special walling to make that work. The Phoenix trading post, just a trading post that's built out of this really super old ancient ruin. We've got a tower here. It's falling over. We've got, you can put a cave in there. You can have something coming out of there, but it also looks good at night with some lighting using some of the mountain diorama tiles. Ruins in the swamp. So this also day and night looks great. Your players can come out of here. Maybe this is their destination. Got some animated pieces and some skeletons around. They can make their way to this working boat. It does have regions attached to it that have a special linker. So you can have them jump on the boat and they can either come over here and find this submerged chest, or they can make their way through the lake around here and ultimately to this other entrance, which is just made with some pieces, right? So this is just a few overhead tiles linked together to make a approximation of a door or cave. And here's Ruins in the Woods, just a very simple map, but large like you saw earlier, where you have more of a wooded environment and some ruins that have been long forgotten. And last, we've got for the dioramas, we've got the snowy ruin entrance. So you've got a little camp here, which these are all just tiles, you can replace them. But this looks really great. And as your players approach, there's just this frigid fog pouring out of here. It's an overhead tile, so it slightly obscures things underneath it. and you can also turn it to nighttime, and it's got sort of an eerie glow that comes on at night, and I think is really effective. Before I get to Scenescapes, here's the Cult-Occupied Ruins. I really like this at night, so I'm just kind of starting at night. You can, of course, turn it to daytime as well. But this is using the unlimited tiles, and I just found one that I liked, or the unlimited terrain, and then I just, put some lights around it, like maybe there's some sort of cult activity here in this area, but it's a nice, you can put lots of stuff here. You can make it busy with shops, or you can have just a skirmish with enemies. It just shows you how to use some of these tools just really subtly to make a very effective map. Okay, Scenescape. So it's mostly merchants. I know we deployed woodworkers, but just for sake of time, wanted to get the blacksmith out. So there is a blacksmith Scenescape character, and you can find it. You can look up blacksmith under tokens, and you'll find your Scenescape merchant blacksmith here. Once you find the merchant that you like, drag him in. And then if you hit Shift Z, you can engage the automatic resizing. So here we can just now drag him up, put him in front of there, put him behind it, that sort of thing. If you click on him, double right click him, I should say, and you go into his artwork, you can actually see alternatives. So you can have some sitting versions, him standing. Here's some top-down tokens as well if you'd like to put him into a battle of some kind. Those are available there. We've got the blacksmith shop number 1, which is this one. Right, simple with some foreground stuff added to it. Blacksmith shop number 2, just showing you how you can piece some of these pieces and players together. Here's blacksmith shop number 3, a little bit lighter color. Other stuff in the foreground. So some things I'll point out, you'll notice that instead of a big hitbox, there's just a subtle yellow glow around the tokens now. It's really effective. That way you don't get that big hitbox showing up all the time. Another thing I'll show you is, check this out. If I double right click and go to appearance and I toggle auto flip for Scenescapes and I toggle horizontal, as my players walk around, they will automatically turn. Awesome, right? Here's one of the woodworkers. Even though we don't have a woodworker to populate it, promise we'll get one. And, again, just furniture around the place so that you can put the merchant and your players wherever you think is most appropriate. And just another woodworker shop with, again, more furniture and a checkout counter, that kind of thing. Just help with theater of the mind. So that's it for the 2D release. Let's kick it over to Swift to talk about 3D.
Hi guys, Swift here. This month we've got some rather stylish maps for you, as well as some work done on making our assets more efficient, both in the back end with pre-existing assets, as well as with newer assets coming in when we can make time for it. The maps are looking great today though, so let's start by looking at a trio of maps made by Sevro. The first one of which is the bridge entrance, which is this one here. So bridges, I think, are always a great place for adventures. Bit of a natural choke point, helps keep battles linear, which can make for some nice classic frontline, backline tactics. And of course, in cases like this where the bridge is damaged, you've got some great environmental hazards. These beams could break underfoot, or someone could just be shoved right off the edge and down into this darkness below. This one in particular definitely has a mood to it. Oppressive green fog, the flaming braziers, the ominous darkness with gouts of spectral flame down below. It's a very flavourful sort of experience here. Speaking of the green fog, though, something I just want to show people who might not be aware. Say you've got a map like this, with a big element that really defines the mood, like this green fog. You can just open up the scene settings. Let me just open that up here. And then go over to the environment settings in the 3D section. And then say we just change the colour of the fog. Go for maybe some kind of paler blue kind of thing. Click apply. And just like that, you've got a very different feeling. You could also change the colour of, say, the flames and all that sort of thing as well. But this blue kind of makes it feel like this is more like a foggy valley somewhere in the Highlands. Less obviously evil, but similarly imposing, I think. I think that's just something to keep in mind whenever you're using a map made by someone else or you're making your own, is just something as simple as changing the colour of the fog can really completely change the feel of the scene. Anyway, that's the first map of this trio. Let's have a look at the second one. This second map is called the Inner Courtyard, and is of course the inside of that fortification that the party were just fighting their way towards. We've got that same fog, a very similar darkness with spectral flame below, and then a fairly intricate series of walkways going every which direction. We've got things like doors on the towers that could lead up onto the walls or deeper into the building, as well as stairways and bridges over this central area. In the centre of this central path, we've got this statue of this dubious robed figure, and to the side we've got an indirect route that passes overhead. I do always say a bit of elevation difference is an easy way to add some interest to a battle. A ranged enemy up here on the bridge, for instance, forces the party to either fire back with ranged attacks, or send someone round the side to deal with them, which subsequently risks splitting the party, particularly if their flanker gets ambushed from this tower here, for instance. That said, if they manage to overcome that challenge, they can turn the tables on their enemies with the layout here. There's a ledge over here on the left that can see this far gate, and the quickest way up is to climb this rickety ladder all the way over here and go all the way around, which of course means not dealing with whoever has come down the central pathway. Anyway, it's enough of that. Can you tell I'm a very tactical kind of player? Overall, this map is looking pretty great, and of course, at the back here, it leads on to the third map in this trio, which is called the Shattered Throne. I do rather like this map. Obviously, I'm a bit biased, but hey. It's got some great vibes to it, I think. We've got this throne up on a pedestal, with the whole castle behind it just entirely gone, fallen into the abyss, and the area that remains has the remnants of walkways all around, which can make pathing pretty interesting. Right up the front is the quickest route, but it's got this massive chasm here that'll block your path unless you're able to make your way across it. Of course, there are routes down the sides, which are lower and slower, but can get you much closer. On the right here, you can get all the way up to the throne. And there's some more intricate details, like this walkway that goes all the way around from one side to the other. We've got things like ladders down from these side bits here that come up into interior sections here, which then trapdoors up onto the surface themselves. And we've also, over here, got this conspicuously stair-shaped bit of ruin off the side of the map, which is hiding a little treasure chest, which I think is quite nice. I think hiding treasure in maps is a pretty good idea. At least I think so. And I think if you can hide it physically, as well as just, making it invisible until the party succeeds in a search check, I think that's kind of pretty cool as well, because then if the players find it, they feel like they're the ones who have found it rather than their characters, which is nice, I think. Overall, though, a very interesting map with some possibilities for some really interesting movement going on, I think. Absolutely perfect, especially if you're more of a tactical kind of party. Anyway, that is the trio of maps by Sevro this month. Let's move on and have a look at another trio of maps, this time by Letters. I've said before that I really like these diorama style maps, and these ones are absolutely no exception. You've got a map idea kind of distilled down to its essence, rather more abstract than a lot of other maps, but I think in many cases that's really a good thing. In this case, we've got a treacherous rocky path across a lava lake, lit by an orange glow from below. And then you've got some details as well, like a cage hanging down from the ceiling here, which, as an aside, that's a bit of a tip for anyone making maps or anything like this. If you have something hanging from a ceiling, you can just have the chain or rope or whatever disappear. And I think with the visual language that we get in a lot of 3D games or animations or so on, I think that looks fine to most people. Intuitively, you might think it looks a bit odd, but I think it works. As well as the cage, there is, of course, a treasure chest out here on this rock for those brave enough to try and reach it. Bit of a mobility challenge for them there. I quite like... I don't think the official name is mobility challenge or whatever, but I quite like giving the party challenges to get to places that look quite difficult, because you'll get very different solutions depending on the makeup of the party. Like, maybe someone is athletic to simply jump across, or maybe the party can construct an impromptu bridge, or maybe someone can find a way to fly or teleport, that sort of thing. A little bit of problem solving is always good. Anyway, let's have a look at the next one, which is the Poison Pit Encounter. If you'd like to channel your inner Miyazaki, here's a good opportunity. It's possible that falling in isn't immediately fatal, it doesn't look all that deep, but of course it's something that most people would very much prefer to avoid, I'd imagine. This is another one of those mobility puzzles, though it's a bit more of a longer one here. You've just got the floor being poison rather than lava, and then having progressively less and less to stand on as you go along. We've got some fairly close together platforms here, then we've got a beam that you can balance your way across, various broken pieces of bridge and tracks that you might have to jump across, and then at the far end, it's degraded to the point where it's just posts embedded in the ground. There's bridges hanging from above as well, but getting up to them would be a challenge in them itself. I can see someone climbing up here, crossing over, and then using this to climb down, but then they'd still have to jump across from there to there. Of course, like I say, each party will have very different ways of dealing with this sort of thing. I am something of a Souls fan myself, but for some reason there's a lot of tropes that I've just not thought to bring to tabletop, like the idea of the poison lake. You could even colour it red for that real Elden Ring experience. Anyway, let's have a look at the third map of this trio, which is the Spider Cave. I'm not really arachnophobic myself, but I still kinda hate this. In a good way though, if that's possible. There aren't even any spiders on the map, those will be tokens of course, so it's just webs, eggs, and various bits of furniture that have been caught up. As you can see how large this map is. That's a woodworking table right there. Giant spiders are another one of those adventuring staples, so it's always nice to feature them a bit more prominently here and there. These three maps, as you've probably been able to tell, are part of this set of diorama-style maps. We got some good responses about the ones from last month, so I hope you all enjoy these ones too. As ever, always open to questions or comments or criticism about them in the comments below or on the Discord. Anyway, the next set of maps are by DrAlbee, so let's have a look over at them. So these trio of maps are centered around this fey swamp idea, mud and bog water, rather unpleasant. And this first two centers around these remnants of a well, which kind of hints at a time when the place wasn't a bog and the ground was much higher, before presumably all the earth got washed away by whatever's caused this. As it stands, this map is a bit of a before state. Let's have a look at the next one for an after. And this is the erupting well. The water level has risen, there's water gushing out, and maybe now we get a clue as to why this well seems to stand up so tall from the surrounding earth. If the whole swamp originated here, then the well will be what caused everything to be washed away. It's a pretty cool concept, but something I really rather like is using the tools we have in 3D Canvas to make something new. Like this water gushing up is just a cylinder with a green kind of watery looking texture that we've made flow upwards rapidly with a shader. And then we put a water shader on the top, so it's all choppy and erratic. No need for any sort of fancy particle systems or anything, where you can just do this whole thing with a single object. As you can probably tell, there's also a chest suspended up on the water, which is another good challenge for the party. Are they able to get it down? Are they going to have to wait for the water to stop erupting? If they do wait for it to stop, will they be able to catch it, or will it fall straight back down into the well again? And just how harmful is all this water that the party are presumably standing in and being showered by? Probably not good. Anyway, let's have a look at the third one of this little trio. And this is the Ruined Causeway, which takes place in the same fey swamp. This one's pretty cool, I think. It kind of makes sense for infrastructure like this to crumble when the ground it's built on turns to mud. And that seems to be what we've got going on here. Along with, of course, the more fey-like elements like the growth of giant mushrooms or these giant thorned roots that dwarf the actual trees that were once here. And the causeway itself is potentially a good way for the players to have gotten into the swamp, or maybe to get out of it, if they travelled along whatever portion of this causeway hadn't collapsed till they reached this point, or if this was the point they were trying to get to so they could get up onto solid ground and then escape quickly. Climbing up or down this thing with these mushrooms here would be quite an interesting challenge, I think. Next up, the big top. To follow on from the ticket booth from before, we now have the top itself. From the entrance on the side here, we open right up to this big old arena of sand. It's a pretty straightforward map with plenty of room for activities. Add a bit of music and you're golden, I think. Before or after the main event, there's a side room over here too. We have a peek in, we see some mirrors and desks, bit of a dressing room for the performers, with a few different pieces here and there, different sort of potions here, scroll and so on here, donuts and sweets, a book. Adds a little bit of character, I think. And of course, with a conspicuous chest, naturally. Overall though, very nice. I can certainly think of several ways to use a themed arena like this. In a lot of maps, all you really need is a big open space, and then you can make quite a lot with it. In this case, it's just a very particular open shape. And just to wrap up, a bit of news about the back-end work we've had going on. For those just tuning in, we're currently working on some back-end changes to the Baileywiki 3D module in order to make it more efficient. In theory, the only thing you guys should notice is that the module suddenly becomes a lot smaller, and your scenes ideally load faster and run more smoothly. Other than that, it should work exactly the same, if not better. Part of the changes will probably break older scenes, so we're also working on a tool to fix them. Once we've switched over to this new method of storing data, we're also going to provide a tool, probably a macro, and then the idea will be that if you go into an old scene, you can just run the macro, and then it'll restore everything back to functionality. And you should only need to do that once. But that's something we're working on the back end. It does involve redoing a lot of stuff we've already done, so a lot of it isn't really newsworthy exactly, but we're still working on it. The props for this month are kind of an extension of that. These are more efficient versions of map pieces made into larger collections. So each one of these rooms and corridors is a single object, as you can see there, and they should all snap together fine. But the main thing with these is that they are using the new method, so they should be kind of snappier to load, much smaller, and just kind of reduce load times overall. But to get real data on that, we'll have to hear what you guys think. So far, we've had some really good positive responses from the work we've done already. We're starting to see some people who are noticing things seem to be running more smoothly. So we're hoping to continue that trend of just making the Baileywiki 3D module faster and more efficient until we've got the whole thing converted over to this new style. Anyway, that's a quick look at the 3D side. I'll hand you back over and see you guys later.
Okay, Dungeondraft users. To start, you get all of the terrain tiles, what we call dioramas over in Foundry World. But in Dungeondraft, we call them terrain tiles. They're all feathered. They butt up to against each other really well. You can make some really cool maps with these, put them on top of other terrains, that kind of thing. But each one of these can be its own map in its own right. But once you start combining them, you can get some really cool topologies that you can then design on top of. We've got a lot of them. This is the second page just of ruins, and they all have sort of suggestions of walls. Some of them have broken down walls, a little bit more defined doors. Some of them have sort of hints of towers and pillars. Just really cool, effective stuff. Some great, walls, retaining walls, things like that. And then we have all the grassy versions. These go better with grassy type of biomes, right? But these are all super fantastic and flexible. I love them. I mean, this is great. This could be a great map just on its own. Some of them have towers bolted onto them. Just make instant topology that's interesting. You get all your forest swamps. So this is all your swamp-related stuff with your lily pads and just kind of a swampy type of environment. Goes well with other types of terrain patches. And then all of your mountain patches too. These also merge well together. There is, I believe, a mod that lets you change some of the hue on these as well if you want to get even more mileage out of them. I'm going to try to play around with it and do a tutorial on it if I like it. Let me know in the comments if you guys have tried any mods that help you change hues, just because it just makes my assets and everyone else's assets stretch further, right? And then, of course, you have all your woodworker stuff, right? So all of the new canopies, all of the tools, you can click on them, see what they're called, right? Show object info, what's its name, what pack is it coming from? I'm using Essential Utils to make that work, by the way, if you don't know that. Lots of different hammers, mallets, interesting tools, stuff that you can throw and create clutter with, toolboxes you can throw down, all the unfinished woodworker furniture, all the sawhorses, which are also, many of them are great. Benches, seating, tables, really, really flexible. All the woodworker lumber stacks. You can great brushes out of the sawdust and just brush sawdust all over the place, which is super fun. And then you get all of the prefab stuff. So here's all the lumber prefabs. Easy to drop into a scene and make it look like, there's a lumber activity or somebody just cutting wood. But these are all prefabs, so you don't have to go through the meticulous work of dropping all these little pieces on here. So they're very effective when you want to just decorate a scene and you don't want to go through the hours and hours of work to drop those little pieces in. All of your woodworker toys are super fun, flexible. Your toy boxes, in case you don't want to put each one of those down individually, you can have some kind of display, toy display or toy box. And then all your woodworker merchants. Again, lots of pieces and details put into these, from all over the library, existing library. All these pieces are in the library. You can make these things exactly like you see them yourself. This just it takes a lot of time. So this just helps you just look up woodworker canopy, merchant, those kinds of things, and drop those into a scene really, really quickly. Then you've got these scenes. This is how we make the unlimited terrains. So these are all set up in a very specific way so that this is tileable. But otherwise, these are all just, terrain patches. And you can swap them out and change things around. You want to change out the stuff in the middle, not something that bleeds over an edge, because it's these edges that you have to be really careful about that stay tileable. But you could otherwise, change this middle one out and put an entirely different center in here, and you've got your own unlimited terrain. Same thing here. This is the forest version of it, just to show you what this looks like. I like the color palette here and just how these different pieces come together, and you land on this cool little door going into the woods. I think it's awesome. And then you get the buildings. So you've got the woodworker operation, which you can see how this is built. Notice if I click on the interior here, it's slightly darker. That's to make the interior a little bit darker than this porch out front. You can see how these pieces come together quickly to make this. The toy shop has both levels of the toy shop. You've got the toy displayed out front, see how it's all built, and then they ultimately can come upstairs. You see flower boxes. These are all things that have been in the library from some time. And then you can see the roofs. It's important to make sure your roofs make sense. So you want the sun at the top left generally and shadow in the bottom right. So you end up doing things like mirroring and flipping to make sure that your roofs just kind of make sense. You can see it's darker shadow here, lighter on the top. Added a little bit of writing using the path tool. And that's it. Otherwise, I make them red so that I can change them any color I want in Foundry, but you can certainly make them, they're colorable here. You can make them any color that you want. And that's it for Dungeondraft. Hope you guys enjoy it. There's I think over almost 700 assets that came with Dungeondraft this month. So let me know how you get along in the comments, and I hope you guys enjoy it. In the meantime, let's close this up and talk about what's next.
So that's it. And as a final announcement, if you like the category browser, get ready for next month when all Baileywiki scenes will now get their own dedicated scene browser. So that's right. Like, wrap your head around that. So instead of dealing with compendiums ever again, you'll get everything through Baileywiki Mass Edit. Why is this a big deal? Because we can finally tag scenes and escape the confines of the scene's original name when searching. So all the forest scenes and castle scenes and whatever scenes will surface with a quick search or by browsing through the scene browser hierarchy. Cool, right? So as always, I hope this release gives you a lot of joy building and tinkering your way to another banger of a game. And as always, we appreciate all of you and your consistent support of our work and for the channel. So until next time, have fun making your maps.